Why the Minnesota Vikings will win the Super Bowl in 2019. Make sure to stay tuned to find out why. What's up, everybody? It's JT Sports. I'm back to you guys with another video. In this video, I'm continuing my series talking about why all 32 NFL teams will win the Super Bowl this year and 2019. Before I begin, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share the video as it helps the channel grow and it spreads awareness of the channel. So, the Minnesota Vikings, why they will win the Super Bowl in 2019. The Minnesota Vikings are one of the most talented teams in all of football. Last season, a big reason why they didn't make it to the playoffs was just because of how bad the offensive line was. But this offseason, they have improved the offensive line. You got guys like Riley Relief, who should be starting at that left tackle position. Pat Eflin, who should be starting at left guard. Right guard, Josh Klein, and right tackle, Brian O'Neill. But the most important position is that center position. They went out and drafted one of the best offensive linemen in this year's NFL draft, and Garrett Bradbury. And the reason why I waited to save him for last is because when you look at the best offensive lines in the NFL, they all have good centers. The Dallas Cowboys have Travis Frederick. The Eagles have Jason Kelce. The Pittsburgh Steelers and the LA Chargers have the Pouncey twins. So when you look at the best offensive lines in the NFL, they all start at that center position. So Garrett Bradbury, I think he's going to end up being a pretty good starting center in the NFL. And if he ends up having a very good rookie season, then this Minnesota offensive line should end up being very solid and very improved from where they were last season. Since the offensive line is going to be improved, that's going to up their chances of winning the Super Bowl this year, because now they're going to actually be able to run the football with a guy like a Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook was held back a lot by this offensive line. Now that his offensive line is going to be better, Dalvin Cook is going to be back to what he was his rookie season before he suffered that injury, and he should be able to be pretty productive and help this Minnesota Vikings run game. Then you also have a guy that a lot of people aren't talking about in Alexander Madison. He's a rookie out of Boise State. Reminds me a lot of Jay Ajayi. He reminds me the way that he plays and his style of running. He's not a guy who's not going to burn you down the sidelines and things like that, but he's a guy who hits the hole hard, and he can also run you over, stiff arm you as well, pretty strong as well. Just go ahead and look up Alexander Madison highlights, and he reminds me a lot of Jay Ajayi when he was also playing for Boise State as well. So I think another thing that people aren't talking about is Kirk Cousins. A lot of people think he's overrated and things like that. Regardless what you want to say, Kirk Cousins is a pretty solid quarterback. You can win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins, but I'm not going to put the whole entire Minnesota Vikings season on Kirk Cousins like a lot of people are doing. That offensive line wasn't really that good. And a big reason why the offensive line wasn't good was because the offensive line coach had died in the offseason. Anytime something like that happens, it's going to have an impact. And also when you have to make a change at that offensive line coaching spot, new philosophy and things like that, what they want to do. So that's another thing now. So now that Kirk Cousins has protection, I think Kirk Cousins is going to be able to get this Minnesota Vikings team to the Super Bowl, and he's going to be able to help this Minnesota Vikings team win the Super Bowl, because when you look at the weapons that he has around him, you got a guy like a Dalvin Cook, and you got tight ends like Irv Smith, who they drafted in this year's NFL draft. Irv Smith is one of the most electric tight ends I have ever seen in the last couple of years. I've seen out of the tight end position when it comes to what he's able to do with the football in his hands. This guy can shake linebackers with the ball in his hands. He's very, very elusive when he has the ball in his hands. You don't really see a lot of tight ends making a lot of guys miss when they get the ball in their hands after they get done catching the football. So what this guy is able to do once he gets the ball in his hands is something that you don't really see a lot of when it comes to tight ends in the NFL being elusive and things like that when it comes from Irv Smith. And they also got Kyle Rudolph, who is one of the better tight ends in the NFL. Pretty solid. They were able to lock him up to an extension a few weeks ago. So they have a very good group of tight ends. Then we got to talk about the wide receiver position. Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, one of the best wide receiving duos in the NFL. Doesn't get better than them, and whoever they're able to find who can start at that third wide receiver spot, which I think it will end up being Dillon Mitchell. I think Dillon Mitchell is going to end up having a very solid solid impact for this Minnesota Vikings team in 2019. So this offense is really, really good. If the offensive line is able to play up to their potential, then this offense should be very good. Kirk Cousins should be very good. He should be able to get this Minnesota Vikings team to the Super Bowl. Now we're going to talk about the defense. I think their defense, talent-wise, is one of the best defenses in the NFL. You just look at name recognition. I mean, look at the guys who they had. They got Daniel Hunter, Everson Griffin, Linval Joseph, Anthony Barr, Eric Kendricks, Xavier Rhodes, Harrison Smith. Those guys are some of the best players at the position in the NFL, and this whole entire defense for the Minnesota Vikings is absolutely stacked. Daniel Hunter and Everson Griffin at that defensive end position is one of the better 1-2 punches you're going to see at that defensive end position in the NFL. Daniel Hunter was pretty solid last year. Everson Griffin was pretty solid as well. Daniel Hunter was a guy who I think is going to end up having a better 2019 season than what he had in 2018. Also, Everson Griffin is going to be a guy who I think is going to end up having a pretty good 2019 as well. So I think both of those guys take a huge step up in 2019. Then we look at defensive tackle. You got Linval Joseph, who is pretty underrated at defensive tackle. I think he's pretty underrated. I think he's a pretty solid defensive tackle. They also got Shamar Stevens there. He's going to end up starting at that other defensive tackle spot on the other side of Linval Joseph. Then we look at the linebackers. We got Anthony Barr, who was supposed to sign with the New York Jets, but ended up getting signed back with the Minnesota Vikings in free agency. So he's a pretty good linebacker. You also got Eric Kendricks as there. He's a pretty solid linebacker as well. One of the better linebackers in the NFL there. So their linebacker core is pretty solid there. And then we got to talk about the secondary. You got cornerback Xavier Rhodes and Trey Waynes. Both of those guys had very disappointing campaigns in 2018, especially Xavier Rhodes. Xavier Rhodes was a guy who actually got called out by Coach Mike Zimmer, who said that Xavier Rhodes needs to start playing up to live with that contract, and that 2018 season wasn't his best season. So I think he's going to end up bouncing back. I also think Trey Waynes is going to be pretty solid this season as well. And they're really going to have to step up this season if the Minnesota Vikings end up winning the Super Bowl this year, which I do think that would happen. I do think those guys end up bouncing back and they end up stepping up. Xavier Rhodes, even though he didn't have the best season last year, I still think he's one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. I think he's a top 15 cornerback, arguably a top 10 cornerback when he's able to stay healthy and when he's playing up to his full potential. And then also Trey Waynes is a pretty solid cornerback as well. Then at that same position, you got Harrison Smith back there as well. So the Minnesota Vikings team, when you look at the NFC North as a whole, you got the Detroit Lions, you got the Green Bay Packers, you got the Chicago Bears. They're not all that far apart, so anybody can really win the NFC North if the Minnesota Vikings are able to stay healthy. I think the Minnesota Vikings are one of the most talented teams in all of football, and if they're able to stay healthy and this offensive line plays good, this Minnesota Vikings team could end up having a first-round bye, or they can end up winning 11 games, 12 games, and having a home playoff game or hosting a playoff game at the home field in Minnesota. So this NFC North division, like I said, is up for grabs. Anybody can win. I've been saying it all off season. This Minnesota Vikings team could win it. Green Bay could win it. Detroit could win it. Chicago could win it. But this Minnesota Vikings team is really, really talented. They're one of the most talented teams in all of football when they're playing up to their full potential. And this Minnesota Vikings team, I think, can end up making it to the playoffs and win the Super Bowl this year. And then when you look at Kirk Cousins is a solid quarterback. He's good enough to win you a Super Bowl, regardless of what people want to say. Kirk Cousins had a pretty solid year. I think he led the NFL completion percentage last year, or had one of the highest completion percentages in the NFL last season. So if he's able to get some protection back there, he can do some damage and lead this Minnesota Vikings team to the Super Bowl. And then you look at the weapons: Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, Kyle Rudolph, Irv Smith, so he has a lot of reliable targets to throw to. Then you look at Dalvin Cook. If he's able to stay healthy and this offensive line is able to hold up, he's easily going to be a 1,000-yard rusher, and he's easily going to make it to the Pro Bowl. And he's going to help this Minnesota Vikings team win the Super Bowl. And then the defense. We already talked about the defense. This is one of the most talented defenses in the NFL when they're all playing up to their expected level of play. You got Daniel Hunter, you got Everson Griffin, you got Level Joseph, you got Anthony Barr, you got Eric Kendricks, you got Xavier Rhodes, you got Harrison Smith. They just have a lot of talented guys on the defensive side of the ball for the Minnesota Vikings. So this Minnesota Vikings can legitimately win the Super Bowl in 2019. And these are my reasons why I think the Minnesota Vikings will win the Super Bowl in 2019. So let me know what you guys think about this down in the comment section down below. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out these other videos for more NFL videos and NFL content. And thanks for watching.